Today on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we've got Week 16 recap. It's time for Garbage Time. Welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. I am your host, Ron Seymour, joined today by Ryan Warner. How are you today, Ryan?
Doing all right. Drinking my sorrows away. Shout out to the Buffalo Bills for ruining my Christmas weekend. No one can do it like you guys can. It was. I literally had to stop drinking during that game because I was getting so emotional.
It's a good thing you didn't pick them in our weekly pick 'em. You didn't pick Patriots. I mean, that
real
would
good
look really
thing.
bad. Real good thing.
Listen, I can always blame it on the homerism in me.
But you can take solace in knowing that you didn't have the worst picks of the week.
True. Joe won that by a landslide.
I don't know what Joe was doing this week, but he just.
And I think I redeemed myself a little bit with winning our DraftKings contest this week. So that was a small sliver of optimism in my weekend.
You know what makes me upset is going into Thursday night, I had the Tennessee Titans to win that game. Like, that's who I originally had in.
Right.
I tuned in before the beginning of the game. There was probably 5 minutes to game time. And I heard the announcer say that the Titans are missing like 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. So I'm like, nah, San Francisco will win now. So I changed it with like 5 minutes before game time.
Ooh.
Yeah, that hurt me. That hurt me good.
Well, I wish I was watching the same thing that you did, because then I probably would have second-guessed my Foreman start this this week. So I should have been watching that. But yeah, it's a tough one. And I don't think, did any of us pick Tennessee? Did any of us end up going with Tennessee?
No, JJ missed the pick, and the rest of us picked San Francisco.
Yeah, I just think, I don't know, all of us were down on Tennessee, but they pulled it out.
Yeah. All right. Let's like we said, we'll get into the week recap. First, we're gonna go ahead and do some news.
News updates.
All right, so some of the bigger things. Garoppolo has a chipped bone and torn ligament in his right thumb. Sound like it might be Trey Lance time. Do you have any confidence starting Trey Lance in a championship game?
I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Although, I mean, it is against Houston.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, like, I guess it would depend on how thin your quarterback. I mean, if you had Jimmy G as your starter, depending on how thin the pool is at quarterbacks. I mean, rookie quarterback, but up against a terrible team. But I mean, I would have to be really desperate to do it.
Makes me worried about all of the weapons for 49ers. Debo, Kittle, especially Ayuk.
I see Debo just getting all of the run game.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of trickery run stuff, but they still haven't said that Garoppolo is going to be out. It sounds like he's going to be. So, I mean, it's all right. It's Monday. That means they have most of the week to try to implement something, but how much are they going to want to try to implement?
It definitely kills Ayuk's value, I think, because you could argue they'll do the trickery stuff with Debo. Kittle's a nice security blanket. Ayuk's, I don't know if Trey Lance is going to be looking for that kind of yardage often.
If you have someone who's around the same as Ayuk in your mind, I would probably go away from Ayuk if possible.
Isaiah McKenzie, maybe?
Maybe.
Probably not, but still.
Another big thing is there is players on the COVID list right now. So keep an eye on that and make sure you're paying attention.
Insane.
We try to update as much as we can, but we all have jobs, so we can't 100% be on top of every nook and cranny of all the COVID stuff. It's way too
Right.
many people.
Yep, agreed. I know the Patriots just lost Matthew Judon, went on the COVID list.
Yeah.
I guess though, I mean, I feel a lot better on players that are announced on Sunday or Monday because, like Tyreek Hill, for example, managed to get back, but Austin Eckler didn't. So, I mean, you have some hope, but if it's announced on like Wednesday, you're pretty much screwed.
Well, I mean, it all depends on if the player's vaccinated too. Like
Yep.
it's 100%. You gotta watch it. Evans, who's been nursing a hamstring injury, also placed on the COVID list. And we already know Godwin's out for the year, so another big week probably coming from Antonio Brown. Might be on your waivers, but I doubt it.
And I'm getting to the point now. I mean, Tom Brady, I think this is 3 weeks straight where he's underperformed a lot. Are you, depending on who you have as your backup QB, are you looking elsewhere or are you still going to ride with him? I mean,
if you have a good backup QB, I'm trying to think of like where down the list I would go. Obviously, if you have one of the top guys, you're playing him over Brady.
And I'm wrong. So Brady put up 30. Well, yeah, just put up 5 points against New Orleans. I think he put up like 15 or so against Carolina. But he does have the Jets coming up. So I guess you could still feel pretty confident there. But for example, like in our league, we got Joe Burrow on the waivers.
Yeah. And who's Burrow playing?
He has Kansas City.
I will say it is hard. It will be hard to sit Brady against the Jets.
Yeah, I made that comment before I realized he's playing the Jets.
All right, running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a collarbone. Apparently, he avoided serious injury, so that's good. But again, watch going into championship week. You never know.
Yep. And then probably one of the bigger ones, Darrell Henderson on IR, pretty much effectively ending his fantasy season. But he's been, like we were talking about before the show, last 3 weeks or so, once Sony Michel got involved, it's pretty much completely negated any value for Darrell Henderson.
Not to mention Cam Akers has a chance to come back this week, which is wild to me. Tore his Achilles. But
who else? Someone else got an Achilles injury this week, didn't they?
Yeah, but I can't remember who.
Who was it?
If Kamara scores 46, he's done. Unfortunately, we've all seen Kamara do that crap before. So
I know. Like any other player, I would say like you're good.
I feel for you too. I'm out of all my playoffs, man.
James Robinson out with Achilles. Torn Achilles.
Yep.
That hurts. They were acting like they wanted to get more involved in the game plan, so his fantasy season is over. Who do they have behind him?
I have no Duke Johnson.
That
where Duke went?
I thought
that was Miami. That was Miami. Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. Carlos Hyde.
Either way, you probably don't want them on that person on your team either.
That's a hard start going into fantasy or the championship.
So keep an eye on. I would keep an eye on James Robinson, especially if you have him in like Dynasty or debating him as a keeper. You got Travis Etienne, who will be coming back next season. They drafted him first round. I'm assuming they want to use him. Achilles injuries are notoriously difficult to come back from.
I'm excited to see what Cam Akers does.
So if I'm in Dynasty, I'm probably going to shop James Robinson around. Maybe try. I don't know if you're going to get a lot of interest, but.
Sue was going to start James Robinson, but Tyreek came in clutch.
Yeah, there you go.
It didn't matter. All right. Do you have anything else for the news, or can we get into these week recap?
I think that's pretty much it, right?
Sounds it to me.
All right.
All right, we already talked a ton about Thursday night's game. Tennessee against San Francisco. Tennessee squeezed out the win. Christmas Day games, we had Green Bay versus Cleveland. I took away from this game that Cleveland needs a quarterback.
Yes, Baker is. I think. Yeah, he's not the answer at this point. Four
Yeah.
interceptions, 200 yards. Like it's made almost every player on that team like not fantasy relevant.
Outside of Nick Chubb.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Who basically benefits because Baker Mayfield's not playing good.
Yeah.
Is pretty much the reason there.
In the debate between whether, if Odell Beckham is not a good wide receiver anymore.
He is.
He is. He just was stuck with Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
He's had what? I think 5 touchdowns in the last 7 games with the Rams, or 3. I don't know. He's had more touchdowns in a few games with the Rams than he had almost his entire tenure with the Browns.
So I owe Odell like a tiny apology because I always assumed that he was the problem. Because usually he is, but in this situation, it definitely Baker. I don't know how hesitant the Browns will be to move on from him. I don't know if it's going to take another season or 2 for them to let go. I don't know any Browns fans, but it probably
did
sucks.
Did they pay him, or is he still on his rookie deal?
Ooh, good question.
I think he's still on his rookie deal.
If so, good on them. I mean, you get teams sometimes that someone has one good season and they kind of pay him. And
I think this would have been his 5th year. He came out the same year as Sam Darnold, so
2021 was his 4th year.
So they still have the 5th year option on him.
Yeah, so they could cut him at any point.
Well, they'd be smart to go get him as much weapons as possible and then do his 5th year option. And then if that doesn't work, then they can cut bait next year.
It's saying they did exercise his 5th year option. Can they exercise it that quickly? That soon?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so he's set to make another $18 million in his 5th year.
Right. So go out and get him a bunch of weapons and see if he actually can do something with it. If not, then they can cut bait. All right, let's move on.
Yep.
Green Bay was Green Bay.
Yeah, Devonta Adams was Devonta Adams. Super annoying since I played him this week. 10 receptions, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just under 40 fantasy points. Absolutely ridiculous. Allen Lazard did produce a little bit. 2 receptions for 45 yards and a touchdown. And Aaron Rodgers did his thing, not a lot of yards, but did get the 3 touchdowns. So the running backs overall ineffective because of that split backfield. And I think that pretty much covers it.
Yep. All right, Indianapolis and Arizona. Indy won this game 22-16. The Cardinals' offense just has looked stagnant without DeAndre Hopkins in there.
Yeah.
And this concerns me about Kyler Murray because this is the same exact thing we saw last year. He had a monstrous first half, got injured, and then when he came back, he just wasn't the same player. So it's beginning to be a pattern and one that I think you can't ignore.
Yeah, like you said, I feel like every year it's the season starts and it's like, oh, Kyler Murray is the man this season. He's the quarterback to have. And then the end of the season gets here and he just kind of teeters out. 3 straight weeks of under 20 fantasy points, which for a quarterback of his caliber with rushing upside, where you probably drafted him, it's not what you want. Right now, Fantasy Pros has, I think he's like he's not even in the top 10 for QBs now. And he was probably the 2nd or 3rd QB taken, I would bet.
Yeah. Alrighty. Jonathan Taylor is
So JJ is officially the poop king in our league. He refuses to accept that trophy or that title, but it doesn't change the fact that he is.
I will just say the fact that I am league commissioner, and I have never once said he was Poop King.
Oh, you don't say that now?
I will not.
No?
Let's get on to Jonathan Taylor. This man is a beast, and he deserves the MVP.
He's carrying that team.
Yeah. He is the most valuable person to his team, which makes him the most valuable person in the league. Because his team would not be where it is without him.
I
even 100% believe it.
Yep. Carson Wentz, very pedestrian. I mean, he did it 2 touchdowns, but 200 yards with 18 pass
He's
completions.
doing exactly what that team needs him to do.
Not turn it over, be a game manager.
Yep. And a good one, too. I mean, when it comes to game managers, he's going to be one of the top ones up there. Like, he can pass the ball and win you the game if he absolutely needs to. He has that ability.
But he's probably not going to win you a game in fantasy. So a good quarterback to have as a Colts fan, probably. But as a fantasy manager, you don't want anything to do with him.
Agreed. Pittman had a good game this game. Finally had a bounce back. Hopefully, another year with Carson Wentz as a quarterback, maybe next year he can have a true breakout season.
Yep. And stop getting ejected after scoring 1 point.
Yeah. Exactly. Moving on, we got the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Giants. Giants have been eliminated from playoff contention. Surprise, surprise. This game was a snooze fest in the first half. In the second half, the Eagles kind of came around and put some points on the board, but overall, I don't think anyone really had that great of a game.
No, I think the only newsworthy thing from this game is I believe Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard both were banged up afterwards. Did I read that Saquon got banged up as well during the game?
Oh, I don't know.
How did Jake Fromm look?
Well, you see, I found out I had Red Zone, and I was watching Red Zone, and they did not.
The Giants were never in it.
They didn't show this game much in the Red Zone. I do think he got injured at some point.
All right. Devonta Smith, probably the only fantasy relevant player from the game. And that was actually because of the touchdown that he managed to get. 5 receptions for 80 yards, and then the touchdown kind of saved his fantasy day.
Yeah, touchdowns will kind of do that.
Yeah, they help, for sure.
Jake Fromm did not have a very good day. Why is that happening? 17 for 25 yards and an interception.
So how do you feel about the news coming out that it sounds like the Giants intend to keep Joe Judge and Daniel Jones at least for another season?
I'm fine with it because, of course they're going to keep Daniel Jones on the roster. They have no idea what's going to happen in the offseason or the draft. It's not like they're going to be like, we're going to just get rid of Daniel Jones. He's not the best quarterback, but we can do a lot worse, as we found out.
Do you think he's fighting for his job in the offseason? Do you think Jake Fromm might be able to have a solid offseason and steal the job, or do you think next season starts?
I don't think it'll be Jake Fromm. There has been rumors of possibly Russell Wilson. We'll see what's in the draft for quarterbacks. I mean, I don't think that this team is far away from being contenders. I think Russell Wilson would really help us. Like, I really think that could make our team good.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys draft receivers every year, so your receiving core is pretty solid.
If they can stay healthy.
Yes. Big if.
Yeah. Big if. All right. Let's move on away from this game because it was a stupid game anyways. The Rams versus Minnesota. Kind of a slugfest back and forth. Adam Thielen did get injured a little bit in this game. I'm not sure how long he stayed out.
He was banged up coming into it too, so I wasn't expecting a ton from him. The Jefferson versus Ramsey showdown. I guess the one thing Ramsey can take away from it is that he didn't allow a Justin Jefferson touchdown, but there were 8 receptions for 116 yards, so a decent day there.
He should be he should probably be wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
Next year. In Dynasty, definitely. In any redraft or any startup dynasties, Jefferson's the number 1 wide receiver to take.
And then Cooper Kupp did his thing, 10 receptions, 109 yards. Going forward,
336 yards. 336 yards away from Calvin Johnson's season record.
Do you think, is this a flash in the pan season, or do you think Cooper Kupp is a stud forever?
Well, not forever. We see this every year. Wide receivers have good years, and then they tend to come down because they get figured out a little bit more.
Yep.
We'll see what type of pieces this Rams offense gets back.
The return of Robert Woods.
The return of Robert Woods. They still have Odell Beckham. We'll see if he's still on the team next year. You know, if they can get their run game going, I know they really want to use their run game.
Well,
and plus, teams will now have a full year of film to study going into next year on the Rams.
Yeah, I think going into drafts, I'm going to let whoever wants to spend a lot of money or an early pick on Cooper Kupp. I'm probably going to stay away from it. But Tommy is going to be a huge beneficiary. I think he drafted Cooper Kupp for super cheap in our auction league.
Yeah.
As far as rushing goes, Sony Michel has completely stolen the job away from Dale Henderson before Henderson even got injured.
And we were talking about this backfield before the show started. And
yep.
I just want to point out there that if Sony Michel, Darrell Henderson, and Cam Akers are all there next year, it will be a full fade for me on any of these running backs, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah. Going forward, I would say Sony Michel is viable, probably, in your championship game. But as far as next season goes, I agree with Ron. I don't want any part of it. Stafford had a very bad game by his standards. Under 200 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. So pretty impressive. They turned the ball over 3 times and still managed to come away with the win. That's what happens when you don't have Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Alexander Madison played his heart out.
Yes.
And is the number 1 handcuff to have on your team.
Yes.
Probably should be drafted in every league next year.
Absolutely. Yep. If you have Dalvin Cook and you don't take Madison, that's with how often Cook gets injured. I mean, he misses at least 2 to 3 games this season.
Yeah.
So spend that 6th round or 5th round pick and take Madison.
Yep. All right, Buffalo and New England. Buffalo got their payback. I thought people were putting a little bit too much into their first game anyways. It was 90 mile per hour winds, and Buffalo was a passing team. They are not a running team.
Yeah.
I mean, I know New England won that last one, and they only attempted 4 passes. But you're not going to be able to do that type of stuff against the Bills when the Bills can pass the ball.
Yeah, and the Bills' defense is good. Yeah. And there's a reason why Matt Jones only got to throw it 3 or 4 times in that first matchup. Matt Jones did not have a good day. Only 140 yards, 2 interceptions. Josh Allen balled out, unfortunately, because I was playing him in fantasy. 3 touchdowns. Isaiah McKenzie frickin' comes out of nowhere. Balls out. 11 receptions, 125 yards, a touchdown. I think that's a flash in the pan. I'm not going to go out and pick up Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, no.
But the one positive from the Patriots is Damian Harris with Stevenson out. Did have a good game. 18 carries for 103 yards and 3 touchdowns. Probably the only relevant fantasy player for New England.
Yeah.
yesterday.
And N'Keal Harry is horrible.
Oh my! The fact that we took him over Debo and AJ Brown literally keeps me up at night.
Wasn't DK Metcalf in that draft too?
Yes. Yep.
He was.
It's I don't like that interception. N'Keal Harry didn't even try to like stop
Bill
it from happening.
Belichick is the worst drafter of all time.
Especially for wide receivers. Like that's why if we just trade away our first round pick every season, I'm totally fine with that because we whiff on it almost every time.
Yeah.
Unless it's an offensive lineman.
So far, you're doing good with this year's.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Tampa Bay, Carolina. Tampa Bay won this game handedly, which most people thought. I don't know how many quarterbacks Carolina went through in this game. I know they ended up sitting Cam and playing Darnold. They scored 6 points. Like,
it's a stupid strategy. Like, when has alternating quarterbacks in and out, like planning to do that and doing that, has ever actually worked effectively?
Especially when neither one of the quarterbacks are any good.
Right. I mean, you saw the Saints do it a little bit with like Taysom Hill and putting him in some Wildcat stuff, but that's completely different than what the Panthers are
Taysom
doing.
Hill could actually play wide receiver, tight end, running back. Like, Cam Newton can't do that. He's just a running quarterback.
Yes.
Like, Taysom can actually do these other things. So it's a little bit different.
Absolutely. Antonio Brown did what we expected him to in his return. 10 receptions, 100 yards.
Yeah,
it sounds like
probably have another really good game this week.
Yep.
Evans and Chris Godwin both missing again.
A Gronk, huge, very disappointing game, but if you have him, you start him next week, I think, regardless, especially against the Jets.
Yep.
And I think that covers that one.
Keyshawn Vaughn got some playing time in this one.
Out of nowhere. Yeah.
I would just keep an eye on the off-season moves at running backs in this team.
That's true.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Because Fournette, how old is Fournette now?
He's not very old.
Oh, he's not? Is he young?
No, he's like 26. I think he's like 26.
Oh, good for him. Le'Veon Bell was a stud, just so everyone knows. Coming back to the Buccaneers, got signed. 2 carries for -1 yard. Put it up.
What a man. All right. He's so done.
Yeah, it's...
All right, moving on. New York Jets and Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jets won this game, 26-21. Just ruining draft picks all over the place.
I think my favorite part about this game is the fact that Joe, the Jets fan, the one with a Jets tattoo, did not pick the Jets to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah. I did.
And then they did.
Zach Wilson's like 50 or 60-yard touchdown run was a thing of beauty. I don't know if you got.
Only Daniel Jones could do that.
Yeah, he goes 80 yards and then stumbles.
True.
He gets so close.
Yeah, that was impressive. I didn't know Wilson could move like that. Like, that was pretty good.
He was shifty.
Yeah, he had some moves.
I'm pretty sure he's a little guy. I'm pretty sure if he got hit, he would have been hurting. But
oh yeah, he's not breaking tackles. Like let's not be
no
naive about that. But
he
that
made
was
a couple
nice.
good shifty moves and made people miss. But all right, next game, because there's really not much talk about the Jets and Jacksonville. It was 2 teams that played each other.
That's the game you watch if for some reason there's nothing else on TV.
Right. Speaking of 2 bad teams playing each other, Atlanta and Detroit. Atlanta won this 20-16. I think that if Jared Goff was playing, the Lions would have won this game.
Yes.
If they could be within 4 points with Tim Boyle. With Tim Boyle throwing the ball, then Jared Goff would have won this game.
Yep, absolutely.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's going to break out next year.
Yes.
You're seeing it now. You're seeing it now. And what's great about this now is people who are not paying attention to right now, people that have been out of the playoffs, casual people that, went 0-4 to start the year and just decided to flake on the rest of the year. They're not paying attention to Amon St. Brown.
Yep.
So he would be a great late round target next year.
On to the Falcons. It's starting to seem like the Cordell Patterson experiment is over.
I think people figured him out.
People have figured it out. Kyle Pitts. I've been anti Kyle Pitts all season, but he had a solid game, 6 receptions, 102 yards. The Falcons need it. I mean, is it time to move on from Matt Ryan?
And it's hard to blame him when he's got his top weapon is Cordero Patterson.
True.
He's got no real running back. He's got no real wide receiver. He's got a great tight end, but it's a rookie tight end. So, I don't know. You get
for them.
Calvin Ridley back.
Yeah.
Running
he
back.
Killed their team.
Well, not to mention their defense is horrible. They need more defensive pieces. They need so many pieces. Matt Ryan's not going to carry the entire team on his back. But I still think he's serviceable.
And they're entering a draft, which from what I'm hearing is a pretty thin draft. And they keep winning games, so they're going to be kind of middle of the road, maybe actually towards the later half. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do there, because I'm guessing with how thin it is at quarterback, you're going to see a lot of the other offensive players come off the board quick.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the most surprising game of the week. Houston beating the Chargers 41-29.
Do you know how many parlays that probably effed up?
And here's where I have to make my apology. Because a few weeks ago, I said Davis Mills was not a real quarterback. I think Davis Mills might be a real quarterback. Because the Chargers have one of the top pass defenses in the league.
And if you're the Texans, I think I become a bit more motivated to cut bait on this whole Deshaun Watson situation.
Yeah. Maybe lower your price a little bit and just get him out of there.
And it's worth noting Davis Mills managed to do what he did, with Rex Burkhead getting 22 carries and Royce Freeman getting another 12. They rushed for a combined 170 yards, 180 yards.
That's crazy.
And he's still...
But we also have to remember that Drew Lock did this one time too.
True.
Put a string of games together at the end of the year and then came out and sucked.
I think the Broncos didn't give him a fair shake. But I would say another MVP of the day in this game, Justin Jackson. I'm actually mad at myself for the fact that I almost did not start him, but I did.
Good job.
30 fantasy points, 11 carries, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then another whopping 98 yards in receiving. Probably the only fantasy relevant player for the Chargers this week.
Yeah, you probably should have started him in DFS lineups.
Yes. Yeah, that was a big whiff on my part.
Not on mine. I did. My whiff was I started Matt Ryan.
Yep.
I almost clicked on Joe Burrow in that too. I came close.
Did you?
Yeah.
Ooh, you would have won. You would have won for sure.
I would have crushed it. Yeah. Speaking of Joe Burrow, Cincinnati played Baltimore, and Joe Burrow and Tee Higgins went nuclear.
Yes. Do you know what I love the most about the Baltimore game?
What's that?
After John Harbaugh did that BS where he ran that running play with 3 seconds left so they could get 100 yards rushing, and then the Bengals went and bombed it out at the end of the game, and Harbaugh was super salty about it.
Yeah, he was real upset that they just bombed it 50 yards for a touchdown.
To Joe Mixon. Amazing.
Yeah, it's so great.
But
you want to own a lot of pieces of this Bengals offense in dynasty leagues, man. That's
all of it. They're all young. They're all studs.
Yeah. I saw a thing where this is the first time that there's been one team that's had a 4,000-yard passer, 2,000-yard wide receivers, and 1,000-yard rusher, all under the age of 26.
Yeah, it's insane. You got a ton of fantasy relevant players this week too. I mean, when that happens, when you put up 41 points, but Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Uzama, even by tight end standards, wasn't bad.
You got to put that in there. You got to put in there by tight end standards.
By tight end. The way this season's tight ends have gone, if you can get 8 to 10 points, that's a win.
Yeah. Yep. Someone has got to figure out a way to figure out tight ends for fantasy. Like, there's got to be something that everybody's missing to figure out, like, who's going to be that tight end, even if it's just like a weekly thing. You know what I mean?
And everybody knows how important a tight end is for fantasy. Like, you're going into this season, over half of the teams that won championships last year had a top 5 tight end. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm spending on tight ends. So I did in all of my leagues, and I whiffed on pretty much all of them. I had Hawkinson everywhere. I had Waller.
Yeah, everyone is trying to find one of these. You don't want to spend up on Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews. But
because Kittle even up until the last few weeks has been
injured.
Yeah. I mean, listen to the top 5 tight ends. I mean, it's Mark Andrews number 1. Most people probably thought he'd be top 10. Kelsey number 2, Kittle number 3, Dalton Schultz out of nowhere at number 4. Kyle Pitts, Goddard, Dawson Knox, Mike Gesicki, T.J. Hawkinson, and then Hunter Henry breaks into the top 10.
And the fact that Hunter Henry breaks into the top 10 shows you how important touchdowns are for tight ends.
Yes.
Because that man has like 30 yards on the year, but like 5 touchdowns. Maybe a little bit more than 30 yards.
And I mean, when you look, Pitts, Henry, and Gesicki, all top 10 tight ends, are only averaging 10 points a game.
Yeah, it's silly. It's hard. The
gap is insane. So you have Mark Andrews at 243 points, Travis Kelce at 236. The next closest is Kittle with 180.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Baltimore didn't look like the same team without Jackson/Huntley.
Yeah.
But Andrews still had a good game because he's a tight end.
They're in trouble at this point, sitting at 8-7. I guess the one positive going into your championship week is the Ravens are not in a position to lay back and kind of coast. They're going to have to be aggressive, so they should be playing. Does Lamar come back this week? Are they thinking he is, or are they not sure?
I haven't seen any updates about it yet.
Okay.
Next game, Chicago and Seattle. Chicago won this game, 25-24. That was kind of a shocker and way to ruin the Giants draft pick.
Yeah.
It was mean, Chicago.
And even Chicago coming away
has been eliminated from playoff contention, which is wild.
5-10.
Wild.
I don't get, like, how does that happen? Because they don't have a bad team. You got Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett.
Russell Wilson missed a few games.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And honestly, he came back too early too. If you remember he was supposed to miss like 4 to 8 or 3 to 6, and he ended up missing just the 3. And then when he came back, like, you could tell his throws were all kind of off.
Yeah, he played terrible.
Yeah. So, plus, and I don't know, like, yes, DK Metcalf is a monster and a very good wide receiver. I'm not taking that away from him. But people have figured him out.
Yes.
Tyler Lockett is a one-dimensional wide receiver. He's very good, but he's that deep threat, big play guy.
Yep.
Like, they don't have, like, a good move the sticks guy.
Yeah, like
Renfro. You know
Like,
what I mean?
if you have DK or Lockett on your team, you're not upset, but they're
Right.
definitely not like Jefferson or Jamar Chase or one of
Right.
those guys.
Right.
Um,
Devonta Adams.
yeah. The Bears, even though they came away with the win, I would say probably the only fantasy relevant one was Montgomery.
Yeah.
Herbert did get a touchdown that saved his day a little bit, but other than that, pretty. I mean, Cole Kmet, by tight end standards, decent day. 4 receptions for 50 yards. So
Yep. All right. Kansas City and Pittsburgh. Kansas City had a great game. Tyreek Hill was
yeah,
underwhelming. Byron Pringle was the guy, I believe, in this one.
yes.
And that's the problem with the Chiefs. If it's not Hill, you never know who it's going to be.
I think the best thing that came out of, and the weird thing, like, I like them using CEH more. It was super annoyed me when they just wouldn't use him, even though he's such a good running back. And then they finally have started using him. But still, only 9 carries. Did get that touchdown though. Tyreek Hill only 2 receptions for 19 yards, which, as Tommy knows, as he has a lot of Chiefs player, kind of killed his team this week.
That's the problem when you have a lot of players off of one team. If the team plays bad, there's a chance your whole thing could crumble.
Yep.
Not that the Chiefs played bad, but
no, but like for him, a majority of his team is actually 2 teams. It's the Rams and the Chiefs. So you figure for each of those bye weeks, you're probably going to take an L.
yeah,
And then if you have a bad week anywhere,
they could really hurt you.
Yep.
Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. Nobody really had a great game.
No, Deontay Johnson was decent, but overall underwhelming by his standards. Najee Harris. What annoyed me, and it's mainly because I was facing Najee in fantasy, is the Steelers were down by like 20-something points, and they're still coming out and just like running the ball.
That's because they don't trust Big Ben.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, guys, you guys gotta like win the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, Big Ben's done after this year, I think. So,
I think so too.
Mason Rudolph, I don't think is the answer. So I don't know what they're gonna do.
Dwayne Haskins, man.
Yeah, they are all about him for whatever reason. So pretty much covers that one.
I guess C. Raiders and Broncos. Raiders won this game 17-13. I have no idea anything about this game.
Josh Jacobs had a solid day. Over 100 yards rushing. What hurt him is absolutely no touchdowns. So I think he put up like 15 points. Foster Moreau finally had an okay game by tight end standards, but that's probably after everyone has bailed on him.
Yeah.
I just think that this Raiders team without Darren Waller is super stagnant. They don't really have the ability to break out. Hunter Renfrow, even, he got the touchdown, which saved his day, but still only 3 receptions for 40 yards. And that's pretty much the extent of the game. Not much to write home about. Jerry Jeudy finally got some work, 3 receptions for 60 yards, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was the Raiders and Broncos. You knew it wasn't going to be that great of a game anyway.
I think they're just praying for Aaron Rodgers at this point.
Yeah, yep. All right, and the final game of this week was the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington football team. Dallas won this one handedly, 56-14. How did they get their points? Was there a lot of I know there were like 40-something at halftime.
So to put it in perspective, Dak basically only played the first half, which was super annoying for me as he was my quarterback, but played the first half, basically only the first half for the most part. 300 yards, 4 touchdowns in the first half. Zeke got another touchdown in the second half. I do believe they blocked a punt for a touchdown.
Yep.
No, they had a pick.
No,
I think they had a.
I know they blocked a punt for a touchdown. They may have had a pick. I know Trayvon had a pick.
Yeah, they had a pick six. I think actually the pick six came from my big guy. I think it was DeMarcus Lawrence. I think. And then Cooper Rush had another touchdown. So
it's crazy.
It's annoying because the Dallas for some reason, chose to be sportsmanlike and didn't keep their pedal to the floor. They should have pulled the 49ers, who gave the ball to Debo with 2 seconds left, even though they were up by 20. So he scored a touchdown, and I lost my game.
There was more than 2 seconds left.
Okay, I think you're right, but it definitely wasn't a lot.
There was like 5 minutes left.
Cooper had a solid game. Dalton Schultz had a solid game. Malik Turner, a name that we're not familiar with. 3 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown, pretty much all from the second half. Cooper Rush was going to him constantly. So I don't know if they're both B team guys and they just have that rapport.
Probably.
I'm going to assume that's what it was, but good looks for them. And Cooper Rush didn't look bad. I mean, he only had 3 passing attempts, but still got 70 yards and a touchdown out of that. 62 of those came from one play.
Yeah, Washington's been really disappointing this year, man. They were supposed to have a great defense, come in with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then Fitzpatrick went down, week 2?
Yep.
And just the defense never showed up until a few games late. Just, man, it sucks.
Antonio Gibson is hot, then he's cold, then he's warm, then he's cold. That team, there's a lot of work to do there. I don't know if Heineke got injured, and that's why Allen came in, or vice versa. But
it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. That's pretty much it for that game. If you were Dallas, if you had any of their players or their defense, you were very happy. And that pretty much covers that game. And then a big game coming up tonight. I need the Dolphins. I need between the defense, Waddle and Gesicki, to put up 42 points. Let's go.
I won't be watching the game because I got to wake up early and go to work. But I'm excited to wake up and check that score. I'm sure there'll be a lot of messages in our group chat also.
Oh, yeah. Especially if I win, there'll be a lot of chirping. If I lose, I just won't respond because I'm a sore loser like that. Which, listen, sore losers get a lot of slack. I'm sorry. If you're a happy loser, that means you're just a loser. You're not supposed to be happy when you lose.
Oh, my
All right? Don't give us sore losers a bad rap.
I hate that I love it so much. All right. Do you got anything else?
Nah, man, that's it.
All right. Make sure you go over to our website and visit us at www.garbagetimeft.com. You can leave voicemails or hate mails, whatever you want to leave us, or love mails to Ryan Warner. That's fine.
Yeah.
Go over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube at Garbage Time Fantasy Football, Twitter at garbage_time_FF. We are on, like I said, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, pretty much anywhere that you can get a podcast. We are available there. Also, make sure you check out our sister podcasts. Garbage Time presents the MMA podcast, hosted by one and only Ryan Warner. When's the next episode?
Absolutely. No upcoming events until the start of the new year. So we'll get rolling then. And hopefully I can get Casey back on schedule. He's been killing me a little bit.
And I know when we go into the off season for fantasy football here, we're still going to do our fantasy football show 1 to 2 times a week. We're going to really go hard into trying to get this MMA show going. Get a little bit more looks into that and everything. But don't worry, we're still doing our fantasy football stuff.
Absolutely. And JJ will be planning on joining me on a lot of MMA stuff.
Right.
People might not know it, but he is a big MMA guy. So he'll have a lot of perspectives there too. So it should be a good time.
Yes. All right. And with all that, we will pretty sure we should have a show tomorrow as long as we can get a couple people on here to do it. I know Joe said he's available. We'll see what happens, but we should have a show tomorrow, which will be our waiver show. So make sure you come back and check that out. Make sure you're subscribed and you hit that bell icon so you know when we drop these live videos. And you can come join us and have a good time. All right. Anything else, Ryan?
All right. Nope. Peace.
Have a great one.